Very good morning to all of you from the south of England, and welcome to all of you in India and for those friends from Canada and the US. I know it's possibly very early in the morning for you. Thank you for being here. I'm Arun, and I will be your host for this morning. Along with me are my co-hosts, Fatima, Sujil, and Priya, and all of us are from the Bookworms book group. So you're here for this book launch of our eBook called Pareidolia this morning on the 5th of February. Just a few housekeeping rules. We are having to mute everyone. Apologies for that. It's mainly to maintain the background sound to its minimal levels. We will ask you to unmute yourself if you have to speak. We do not expect any fire alarms. If there are fire alarms, please remember that you're at home and do take appropriate evasive action. With these few words, I will pass you over to my colleague, Rashmi Datta, who will introduce the book groups, the bookworms to you. Rashmi?
One day, someone posted a picture, and the latent poets in all of us emerged. More pictures and more poems followed. Peers gave suggestions for improvements, tweaking a letter here and a word there. This spontaneous outburst of emotion on seeing a picture has been put together by Arun and the rest of the bookworms. May I now request Arun to introduce the book to the audience. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It is my pleasant task to introduce the book Pareidolia to all of you. The book will be launched very soon by Anita Nair, the well-known novelist. The word Pareidolia might sound surprising to most of you. It is a fairly common term, and I will try and explain what it means. I will then describe the book, how it was formed, and where we are, and what we would like to do with the book. First, there was the image, and then there was the word, and the word related to the image and created meaning. That is what Pareidolia means to us. So when we see images, for example, we see clouds, we might read images into them. We might see a face, we might see the face of a loved one, and that phenomenon of relating to something and creating meaning from it is pareidolia. There is, of course, a more pathological meaning to pareidolia, but we are taking the more common meaning. As human beings, we are all quite familiar with the formation of patterns. When we see things, we try to connect them together into a pattern, and that pattern creates meaning for us. So everything we see, we relate to something within ourselves. There is therefore a relationship, and it is that relationship which is important for us in this book, Pareidolia. So Pareidolia is actually a relationship for us, as much as it is a book where we have all penned our verses. Rashmi has just described to you the Bookworms book group. Now we are 232 strangers. Most of us have never met each other. We all came together because of our love of reading, of books. So we shared our reading. We cajoled, stimulated each other to read, and we discussed and dissected books. Anita Nair's book is her books are well loved in our group, and we have discussed her books. Hence, we started to discuss books, but one day, one of us, Mini Menon, posted a image on our WhatsApp group. And she then penned a few lines. This created a stimulus in some of us, and we also started to write verses. Here I must remind you that none of us are poets, though we have published poets within our group. Most of us have not actually written poetry before or verse before. We then also started to correct each other, edit each other's poems, stimulate each other to write, and this became almost a daily process. At the end of a year, we realized that we have a substantive number of such poems, all written in response to images that we posted. So we thought, why not collect all of them together? And what we found was that in response to 50 images, 200 and odd poems, 203 poems had been written. So we then decided to collate this, and it was a stupendous task. There was a sort of a task force, the Pareidolia task force as we call it. And we all came together to try and collate this information, to edit it, to correct the spelling errors, to try and rewrite some of the lines that we thought that needed to be rewritten. And we spent a considerable amount of time doing that. And we are fortunate to have two wonderful editors, Fatima and Manoj Manikyat. And I must thank both of them for their efforts. They were also supported by an editorial group, whom most of them you will see online today. The result was this book, eBook, Pareidolia, which has 114 pages, and then, as I said, 203 poems written by 30 contributors. Some of them are in English, most of them are in English, some are in Malayalam, and a few in Hindi. So it is a trilingual book, actually. Now, this book is being brought out as an e-book, and we'd like to thank a few people for allowing us to use their images. So we'd like to thank Nasir, who is a photographer with Madhurabhumi. He's an avid nature photographer. You would have read his columns. We have Manoj Das, who is a well-known artist. Dr. Jude Joseph allowed us to use his image. Dvideep, who's one of us, has contributed images, as has Ashik Asim. And we'd like to thank all of them for the use of their images. In addition to this, several of us posted our own photographs, and we've responded to these with verse. Now, this book, as we've said, is a relationship for us. It was a collative effort. It was a collective effort. It was a cooperative effort. And that relationship is something that we'd like to share with all of you. So when we speak about this particular book, we'd like to think of what it actually means to us as a group. Hence, in this particular book, we'd like to relate to all of you. Now, all of you are here because of a relationship that you have with us, and we thank you for that. And we'd like to extend that relationship and ask you to relate to what we've written. Now, in this time, in these difficult times, in these strange times, there live amongst us people who find it difficult to relate to others, difficult to empathize with others. We would like to dedicate this book to them. They are people who are neurodiverse, who have conditions such as autism. And today we have with us Venu, who works and has founded a NGO, a charity, which works with people with autism. We would like to relate to the work that Venu does. We'd like to relate to the people with autism and to their carers. Hence, We would like to share this book with our friends, family, and well-wishers. And in that process, we'd also like you to, if possible, contribute to Venu's charity. You will hear more about Venu's charity later. So that's the book, Pareidolia, which Anita Nair will be releasing very soon. Thank you. I will now hand over to Padmanabhan Paddy to introduce Anita Nair.
Good evening to this motley group and welcome all to today's inaugural function. It gives me great pleasure to welcome our chief guest for the day, renowned writer and novelist Anita Nair. Anita Nair is a writer and novelist who is well known for her novels. The novels have a very strong feminist view, and they're popular because they turn a spotlight on women in society in a way that we have rarely come across before, and highlighting aspects of their life which we have not seen till now. Her talent is extremely prolific. She has penned not only novels, children's literature, historical fiction, crime novels, poetry, travelogues, columns, and recently even audiobooks. After her initial education in Chennai, she then took her master's in English literature. Anita produced her first book of short stories, The Satire of the Subway, when she was working for a creative advertising agency in Bangalore. This won her a fellowship from the Virginia University for Creative Arts. Her second novel was a huge bestseller and was published by Penguin India and was the first novel in India to be published.
I said, sure, of course. The only problem that I probably might have is the day and date. Excuse me, there's a notification and I can't. Yes, and so here, I am all set to be part of this online launch of this online book. And I was very curious about the title itself. But when I heard Dr. Arun Kishore talk about it, it was very clear. And I said, yes, I understand. And I'd read some of the poems that were sent to me, the pages with their images and so on. And I was thinking, what a wonderful thing to do with when, everybody was suffering from this pandemic world we were forced to inhabit suddenly, and how it completely changed who we are as people in many ways. I think it gave a lot of us a lot of time to retrospect on the kind of lives we are leading and where are we headed if this continues. There is no answer yet, but I think also what it did was it helped unearth a lot of latent talent. So people who had always shied away from probably putting pen to paper or, the various kinds of art forms suddenly found expression in this pandemic world. And I think that is probably the only, I would think, the only silver streak in this current world that we live in. So poetry, when it comes to poetry, I think what intrigued me more than anything else was that this was not a collection of essays about different people combating this new life that we are all forced to lead. It wasn't really about the relationship between the outer world and the person trapped inside this house. Instead, it was, I thought, of what I read, it seemed like to me that this was actually a kind of unfurling of what lay within everybody's heart. And the images were like a catalyst. They just triggered off words that suddenly were imbued with a whole new meaning. And it's amazing that I think, so many people responded to the images and were able to put out what was, I would think, hiding, lurking, probably waiting to erupt. All that was waiting within them. Now, poetry, as all of you know, anybody who's read poetry, you don't have to essentially write poetry, but if you read poetry, you'll understand that it's an act of great intimacy to be able to put your intimate, very deep thoughts onto paper and allowing the rest of the world to be also part of that experience. So it's also an act of great courage. It's not an act of deliberate artistic output, in the sense, unlike, say, a novel or a short story, or a travelogue or whatever, any form of creative expression, or say like music, which has its own rigor, or painting, which also you need to have training, etc. And poetry actually moves away from all of that. And poetry becomes this, I think, very direct link from what lies within your heart. I mean, and this might be scientifically or wrong, but traveling to that conscious mind. So I use the more scientific terms and say that what lies in your unconscious mind comes out into your conscious mind, and somewhere in that journey there is a certain alchemy that happens, and the result of that is what you read as a poem. Poetry is also something that allows the reader and the poet himself or herself to understand everything or anything, whatever that they are writing about, better, to be able to have a certain perspective which probably was not seen before. Now, if I were to tell you these two lines of a poem, or it's actually a single line, which says, legless, unloving, infamously chaste, what would you think this line of poetry refers to? I mean, I think all of you, if you don't know this poem, would be surprised that it's about a fish. Hear that again: legless, unloving, infamously chaste. And who else but a poet would be able to see a fish and write these words? There are writers, different sorts, writers who write essays. There are fiction writers. There are non-fiction writers. There are faction writers. There are different kinds of writers. So if you were to equate these writers to the primal functions of the body, like breathing and the heart beating, etc., and then you start thinking of the more developed functions, like the thought and emotions, etc. I think poetry probably is the most highest of emotions, because there is no room for deliberation there. It's both instinctive and conscious. It's both walking a fine line between what you want to reveal and how much you want to hide. And so I think poetry is something that allows everybody who wants to, put out their thoughts in verse. It allows people to be succinct. It allows them to, be succinct with a flourish. And so all of this, I think, happens in poetry. It's like, I'm sure Sreevalsan would be able to agree with me on this, that there are times when a musician hits that sweet spot between music and the universe, where you have a sense of how much of a speck you are in this vast universe. And at the same time, you feel that you are the universe. So that's a sweet spot. And I think if you were to look at literature, poetry is that genre. It's a horrible word to use to describe something so ethereal, but poetry is that particular form that allows an artist to find that sweet spot between the conscious mind and instinct, is that sweet spot between being succinct and writing with a flourish, so which means being able to find the perfect metaphor, because there is no poetry without metaphor. And eventually, it is also that point which gives you a sense of how insignificant you are, and yet how significant your words can be. And as someone who started writing poetry at a very young age, I always believed that I have always written poetry when I'm so moved by a very strong emotion. This emotion could be anything. It could be elation, it could be absolute melancholy, it could be anger, it could be just resentment, it could even just be disgust. But it's when I am driven by a very strong and very clear emotion that I find myself writing poetry. I don't, as a poet, I don't write poetry to settle my thoughts. I write poetry only when, after the unsettling process that I've gone through, I like to kind of draw from that emotion and use that in the poem that I'm creating. I suppose every poet comes to their poetry in their own fashion, and which is what makes so many poets still be. We have so many poets, but still all of us are so different from each other. And to this day, when you talk to to publishers, they tell you poetry is something that doesn't sell. Nobody reads poetry except the poets themselves. I just wish that poetry expanded to become something that is read. Once upon a time, we only read poetry. Long before there was fiction, we had oral storytelling, and we had poems that were recited and narrated. And somewhere in between, poetry seemed to suddenly suggest a certain airy-fairiness, a lacking in creative fiber more than anything else. And slowly, poetry began to be sidelined, and it to me seemed that poetry demands an effort from the reader, and unless the reader makes an effort to understand the poem and what the poet was going through, or what the poet was trying to say, poetry might at times seem like a string of words with no particular meaning. But if you were to read it again and again and analyze it, then you understand and you start seeing what the poet was actually thinking about at that point. And I have always believed, like I said earlier, that poetry is the highest form of literature. And so I'd like to congratulate all of you once again on putting this book of poems together. And I hope the Bookworms will continue to, experiment with poetry and other forms of writing as well. Because as all of you probably realize, that it's very addictive. Once you start, you can't stop ever again. And on that happy note, thank you.
Thank you so much. I think, Paddy, are you here? Raman, are you? Okay, I'm going to unmute you.
Okay. I'm here.
Okay.
Anita, madam, we have a few people who have actually written in with a couple of queries for you. Would you be okay with taking a couple of questions?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'll be moderating the session for you just so that the session goes on smoothly. So actually the question has come from one of our persons who have logged in, and the question is maybe slightly tough for you to probably answer, and that is, what is your favorite genre as a writer? Now that we have said that, I mean, you have actually several areas in which you have touched as a writer and a novelist. Is there any one among them which is your favorite genre?
I wish I could say that I have a favorite genre within what I write, but actually, I think to me the idea suggests the form that I should, create it in. So it comes with the idea, the form comes attached to the idea. So if there is a certain thing that I'm very moved by, something that is like this thunderstorm happening in my head, then I, automatically end up writing poetry. But sometimes that thunderstorm in my head continues to rage in whatever form. And at that point, I might think that this demands a longer, form for me to be able to quell it. And sometimes I could end up writing a short story. So it really comes with the idea and the form come together.
So the next question actually possibly also would be something in a similar line. The other question asked was, do you have a favorite among the pieces that you have created, especially among your novels?
No, again, not really, because with every novel, I have a particular backstory attached to it, why I wrote that novel, how I wrote it, and the whole process of it. So it becomes very difficult to say that I like this one better than that one. And also at this point, if I'm working on a new book, that is all occupies. I mean, that is the only thing that occupies my thought. So everything that I've written before actually ceases to exist for me. So which is not a good parent, I think. So
the next question was actually about the writing process itself. It is often said of every creative artist that if they were to go back and reread their work, or even if a creator of a painting were to revisit his or their work, they would probably think of completely rewriting it in a different fashion. Does that thought occupy you at times?
No, never, because I think that, it's an evolutionary process. In every book, I evolve as a writer. So for me to try and go back and rewrite probably my earlier books would, I think, be, I think, deleting myself and, myself as a person. Who am I as a person? All of that ceases to exist if I were to go back and rewrite everything, because that's how I feel today. Because in 10 years' time, I could think differently again.
There is a part B to that question. Was there any one particular book which you thought you must have a part two to?
Oh, several. In fact, I think every book of mine, because I kind of get so invested in my characters that they are like real people to me. So I don't want to, sever ties with them completely. So back of my mind, I'm always thinking that I need to do a part two to this book, or I find that I take a character from one book and bring them into another, and so on. But I think two books, I knew definitely that I would have something to do. It would be a kind of trilogy. Was The Better Man, when I wrote The Better Man. And I said, I need to do a part two. The part two became Mistress. And because there are some characters who come in, it's set in the same landscape pretty much. And part three became Eating Wasps. But it's not really like a very clear sequel in that sense. But yes, where I know that I do have a series building is with the crime fiction that I worked on. I have 2 books already in the crime fiction series, and the third one is what I'm working on right now. And I already have like ideas for the 4th and 5th and so on. And another book which I was very sure that I'm going to be doing a trilogy is the historical novel, Idris. Is the first one. And the reason being that the material, I began writing it as a single book, but the material was so vast and so fascinating that I said I can't contain everything into one book. I'd rather do it over a period of time. So yes, some books again suggest that.
Actually, the next question was also related to your detective character, Inspector Gowda. And the question was actually from Dr. Arun himself. He was asking actually what was really the inspiration for turning to something so different as crime fiction.
Okay. So this is like pretty much like a session with an analyst. a psychoanalyst, because if I were to tell you how I ended up, I know that he's a psychiatrist. So so what happened was that I was, traveling through Europe for the promotion of Lessons in Forgetting, and so it was like a multiple country, multiple city kind of tour. And so I was in Paris, then I was in Milan, then I was in Rome, then I had to go back somewhere else, then come back again to Rome, etc. And so on, that was happening. And at least I think about 3 legs of that journey, my son joined me. And sometimes he would come in for the interviews and stuff like that. And I remember one evening we were, it was around 5 o'clock in the evening, and we were sitting in a cafe in Rome, and my son and I were talking about this, and I was saying, Maitreya, I'm like, so tired of this question that every journalist asks me in every interview I've done until now, and each of them asks me in a different language, what is it to be a woman in India? And I'm like, okay, that's what I write about. Why are they still asking me this question, and so on? So then my son, I think he was being, funny, or he was trying to be funny, and he said, why don't you write about a transgender person at least, and you'll have interesting, answers to give, and so on. And he said that, and it was like something clicked in my head, and there was this lovely bookstore across from where we were sitting. I went across, bought a notebook, and came back, and at the hotel that night, I started making like this scene. I created this scene, which is the opening scene from that book, Cut Like Wound. And it was suddenly like, what am I going to do with a transvestite character? Because I write about small town India primarily, and transvestites you don't really see transvestites in small town India. You find a lot of them, you'll see a lot of them. I'm not talking about transgenders, I'm talking about transvestites. And then it was like, okay, now what do I do with this? And then out of the blue, there was this, I like bikes very much. So I can't write. I mean, I'm just an admirer of bikes. And I had this image of this burly man sitting on a bullet and coming in on the road. And it was suddenly, now, how am I going to marry these 2 scenes? What am I going to do with it? I have 2 vivid scenes. And so finally, I said the one place I can locate it in is Bangalore. And suddenly the crime novel happened.
Thank you. I will not trouble you much more, but I just have this last question from one of us here who's just typed in that, how do you decide how deep and detailed a character should be?
It's very simple. If you feel that you know the character like somebody you know very, very well, I mean, as well as it is possible to know another human being, then immediately you know that you know enough about that character, everything about them, what they ate, what they like to eat, what they like to wear, what they like to read, what are their politics, what is their religion, all of it, what are their prejudices, what are their fears, what are their phobias, all of those details. The moment you have all of that, then you know that your character is fully fleshed out.
Thank you, madam. Do you have a favorite character among your novels?
No,
Does any of them?
I keep saying that. I mean, but it's not really true. It's in its fullest sense. That I keep saying, Inspector Gowda is like my alter ego, because he does all the things that I wish I could do, and can't really, because legally I'll be in trouble. So
shall I rephrase that to say, is there a character which reflects you as closely as could possibly be?
Probably Idris.
Okay. I just saw this reference actually to this description of a person on Eating Was, which actually took me up by the very cheekiness as well as the humor of the line, and it says, Lakshmi wore a face which washed with curdled milk, into which someone had thrown a large mug of cat pee. And it really set me thinking as to what kind of face that person could possibly have. So thank you so much, madam, for introducing us to this wonderful world of letters and taking us to a world where we have seen things from your mind and where you have opened and enlarged our vision to a lot of things which happen around us, which we probably did not see till then. We were viewing them, but we probably really did not see with the mind's eye. Thank you very much for opening our minds to them. It has been a pleasure to have you here. And may I now request the admin to please declare that you will be inaugurating the ebook effort, Pareidolia. Thank you, madam, once again.
Thank you.
I'll take over. Thank you, Perry. I'll take over from here. Thank you, Anita, for your indulgence. And I'm really sorry if it sounded like a grilling session. It wasn't me as an analyst at all. It was the bookworms who sort of burr holes into people. but thank you for your indulgence.
No, I'm very happy to answer questions. I really enjoy it because it's one of the things that I'm sure that you probably realize, all of you yourselves now, when you've been working on your poetry, is that writing is a very solitary profession. It's very, very solitary. So the only time that you have a sense of what you have created is when you're talking to a reader. And that's the only time. So I'm always very happy to answer questions.
Thank you. And as a person who creates magic for all of us, we thought if you could launch our book with a little bit of magic, all you have to do is just say a few words. I'll share my screen and we'll play a video. So that'll be the magic of the book launch, if you would do that for us.
So you want me to say those words?
Just say I'm launching the book and I'll play the video.
Right.
That's all it is. Fairly
now?
simple. Yes, I'll just share my screen.
Right. Okay.
So if you could say the words, I'll play the video.
I am launching this wonderful book by Bookworms. Pareidolia.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And the book will be available. We are not bringing out a print version. It's an ebook, freely downloadable, and we'll just send the link around.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We now have our next guest, and I'm inviting Vinitha, who you can see on screen, to introduce Sreekumari Ramachandran. Vinitha?
Good evening, all. Yeah, good evening, all. I now welcome Srimati Sreekumari Ramachandran into our midst. Thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invite. She is a brilliant writer, orator, columnist, trained dancer, and an accomplished singer who has authored 37 books, spreading over a vast spectrum of subjects, which includes short stories, novels, biographies, and music. Her English translation of the legendary Malayalam book Aidihya Mala, written by Kottarathil Shankuni, and published by Madhrubhumi Publications, won her wide acclaim as a translator in the mainstream. Her latest book, Bharatathile Rishikavigal, published by Madhrubhumi Publications in 2019, was one of the bestsellers of the year. Himalayan Odissi, her translation of Haimavada Bhuvil, a Malayalam travelogue authored by Sri M.P. Virendra Kumar, published by Penguin Random House, Delhi, was released by none other than the Honorable Vice President of India in September 2019. Her book, The Tales of Malabar, which includes interesting vignettes from the vast history of Malabar, is indeed an extraordinary and enthralling read. Her other notable works include Agniveena, published by Karan Books, Vidavagalode Gramam, published by Pen Books, Mall Mudal Marine Drive Vere, Daya Harji, the list is long. She has won many awards and accolades for her works, including the coveted Dr. Suvarna Nanapal Award for her translation of Aidihimala. She is a regular contributor to many popular magazines and weeklies, including the Bhavan's Journal. Apart from her writing, she is a B-high grade music artist of All India Radio and Doordarshan. If this isn't enough, she is the founder president of Indian Society of Authors, Kerala chapter, and has served as a member of the executive committee of Kerala Sangeeta Nadak Academy from 2002 to 2005. She has also served as a jury member of Kerala State Film Awards Committee, Madhrubhumi Medimix Film Awards, and the Filmfare Awards Committee. Dear friends, it is indeed my pleasure to introduce Sreekumari Ramachandran to you. Thank you, ma'am, once again for being with us.
Thank you.
Ma'am, we would like to hear from you.
Sure. Warm greetings to one and all. It's always a pleasure for me to be in the company of people with creative minds. And I thank you for giving me an opportunity to enjoy an hour with you. First of all, let me confess to you that I am not a poet, but I love poetry. Maybe that makes me eligible to be present in this gathering. To be asked to make an analysis on a book is indeed an honor. I thank Team Bookworms for the same. You have given me the opportunity. Mrs. Anita Nair has already spoken about poetry in general and the latent talents that deserve to be brought to the limelight. So better I would speak exclusively on the book, that is Pareidolia. I will happily define the book Pareidolia as the inflorescence of the exquisite expressions or the exquisite impressions or the exquisite minds. I prefer to discern it as the innermost feelings of 30 poets. Am I right? 30 poets issuing in rhythmic language. The subtle sentiments of these poets pulsating in this compilation of 203 haikus. I mean short poems. Haikus is a Japanese word. I mean short poem. Reverberate spirituality, hope, love, grief, helplessness, and devotion that are the undercurrents of human life. The name of the WhatsApp group itself arouses curiosity. Bookworms. To be frank, it evoked a feeling of tenderness and warmth in the cockles of my heart. I saw verses in English, Hindi, and Malayalam. Though I haven't gone through all the haikus, I did skip through a few of them, and I have made my own inferences regarding the contents of this book. I noticed how some of them discuss the truth behind the never-ending story of life, something that is true of all writers, of all stories. The end does not put a full stop to anything. Rather, it would sometimes mark the beginning. Each of the poets who have contributed to this wonderful garland shoots an arrow that goes beyond his or her control. But the poet is confident that it will certainly blossom in the minds of the readers and exude its own fragrance. Some of the poems urge man to believe that the world will stay as sublime as ever, even without him. Some other versicles reveal that falling in love is beautiful and getting lost in the rapturous world of love is bliss. There are rhymes in which I could notice the philosophic approach towards the totality of life. They lament over the frailty and helplessness of man before nature. But of course, I could see a silver streak in all of them, which mirror the confidence of the poets. They uphold the axiom, you are your best friend and best critic. A few couplets articulate how hard work leads to success. They punctuate that just waiting for things to happen on their own is not enough, and that you have to strive and achieve your goals. Some poets regret over the losses in life, but they realize that time, the healer, would bring joy and laughter back into life. It is really interesting to notice how some couplets illumine the bond between the creator and his creative work. They point out how the creator's heart breaks when his creation is torn to tatters, even if it is for decor. As is the old saying, maybe I am a black crow, but my cheek is my golden cheek. A few poems importune the readers to look at nature that never laments over the withered flowers or the fallen fruits, for it knows that the spring would come again. What a sprightly idea to look forward into the rosy future. Let us give attention to the words of wisdom uttered by the veterans who are experienced. They would perhaps prompt us to dismiss the body with a laugh and allow the dreams to soar high. There is an innate spirit in everyone which needs to be discovered in order to lead a fruitful life. Once it is manifested, it would guide us, support us, and protect us. Who knows, perhaps even the smallest spark striking at the moment, most unexpected moment, would revitalize life. On the whole, Pareidolia leads us to a world of nostalgia that helps us to experience an ecstatic bliss. The book hopefully beholds the beauty embedded in the entirety of the world. It reveals the best and the happiest moments of happy minds. How do I conclude? Is a puzzling question, but then anything that begins has to end. So I take this opportunity before I conclude to congratulate all the bookworms who have given expressions to their musical thoughts in this opuscule. I'm extremely delighted to share this platform with you all, especially Anita Nair and Sreevalsan Menon, and analyze this ebook for the discerning readers. Thank you and Godspeed.
Thank you, ma'am, for analysis. So it was such a beautiful analysis of the thought which has gone through our minds. Thank you, ma'am. We have some questions, if you would, from our group, which you would like to answer. Is that okay, ma'am?
Sure, certainly.
Ma'am, there are a lot of, translation work which you have done, especially the Adi Himala, which is, it has actually made the non-Malayali readers to understand our culture and the way it has been expressed. So, the first question is, translating literature is in fact translating life. It's a hard and difficult task. So, ma'am, could you explain your thought process that goes behind it?
Translation is not an easy job, you know. Yes. It is as strenuous as writing a creative work. Very difficult, but it is regarded as a secondary literary work. That is what worries me. Always translations are regarded as a secondary literary work. That is so sad, but it's very difficult. I have translated many books, but nowadays I am slowly stopping translations because I don't get time to write my creative works, which give me more pleasure than translations.
Yes, very true, ma'am, because translation, you have a framework, but at the same time, expression should also be conveyed. The meaning shouldn't be lost. It isn't an easy task at all, ma'am. I know what you mean by that.
Yeah. I usually get the permission of the author to for liberty. I want liberty. I always tell them that only if you give me some freedom, I can take up your book. Otherwise, I am not interested in translating, because word by word, literary translation is very difficult, and it won't be enjoyed by the readers also. So you should always have some freedom if you want to translate some book. Some freedom you must have.
Okay, now there is a question which we have. What inspired you to get back into the world of literature after having led a quiet life for almost 20 years? Or, I mean, I would say, was it dormant, or, what inspired? What was inspiration that?
It is something personal, because
Yeah, ma'am, this is a
I
personal
was,
question too.
I was, yeah. I got married very early when I was just 17, and came to a family which was very conservative. So they didn't want me to pursue my music or my dance or even my studies. So it was really choking for me. In the meanwhile, I had my first child. So I was busy bringing him up and all that. Once he was 6 or 7, I had my second boy. So I got busy with him also. So, however, I lost 20 years of my life. Then I thought I must do something creative. I have lost my music, I have lost my dancing, everything. So I started doing riyas in music. Then I got auditioned at the age of 40. I was 40 when I got auditioned by the All India Radio. And at 43, I got upgradation from the All India Radio New Delhi as B high grade artist. Then only I could sing on Doordarshan. So I performed on stage also for about 10, 12 years. Unfortunately, destiny was not in favor of me. I had some problem in my thyroid and I had to undergo thyroidectomy. So once again, my music is always also again over. The career in music is over now. I can't sing anymore. But then I believe that when one door closes, another one opens. When destiny closes one door before you, it opens another door. So I chose literature. Even while I got auditioned, simultaneously I pursued literature also. I started with short stories, then columns, like that. And only in 2010, I took to translation just because of the pressure from my younger son, who doesn't know Malayalam. He was taught Sanskrit in school, so he wanted me to translate Aitihiyamala. So that was my first work in translation. So there was no looking back after that. Translation was poured in, and I got bored. So now I have almost stopped it.
And ma'am, your work, Tales of Malabar, that itself is, such an interesting, because we rarely hear very few from, about Odeon. Actually, frankly speaking, the film Odeon, then we came to know about Odeon, and that is all mentioned in your book. Northern Malabar, the cultures, the traditions, and some Samudri history and all that. Does history fascinate you?
It is not a it is not
It
a
is not a
translation.
translation. Yes, ma'am. That is not a
No,
translation. Yes. Yeah.
It's my original work.
Yes.
I studied history in college.
Okay. That was my
Economics and history. So I am always interested in history. I travel a lot. I read a lot of history books. Like that, I was interested very much in the history of Malabar. I have toured Malabar. I have seen this Teyyam and temple arts like that. I have visited almost all the temples in Kerala. So that is how I got into even my sons. They are interested in traveling across Kerala. Only after discovering Kerala, we started discovering India. And only after discovering India, we began to discover the world, traveling over Europe and all that. However, I find India the most fascinating place in the world because history sleeps here. So without the history of Rajasthan or Gujarat or Andhra Pradesh, India has no history. So I'm very fond of history. That is how I wrote Tales of Malabar, and I'm planning to write a second part for that.
Yeah, ma'am, I knew that when I read about it, it was very interesting. Because I come from Calicut, so I can relate, and I have also visited. Okay, so I could actually relate to it. Okay, ma'am. Mm, thank you so much, ma'am, for being with us and for sharing your experience. It has really been an inspiration. There are many of us who here who have, are on the same journey, who are all, waiting to break free. So you are certainly an inspiration for many of us here. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. It was my pleasure attending the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinita. Thank you, ma'am, for being here with us. And so we'll move on to our next guest of this evening, Sreevalsan Menon. And is Minnie?
I am here.
Okay. Could you introduce Sreevalsan Menon, please?
Good evening, everybody, guests and friends. I'm very privileged to introduce this very versatile personality, Dr. Sreevalsan Menon. He's a professor at the Agricultural University at Trichy. But to most of us here, he is more familiar as the famous Carnatic vocalist and music composer. He had his advanced musical training from the renowned late Neyyatingara Vasudevan sir and is known for his unique style of rendition. A very accomplished music director and composer, 2 of his songs and the background music of the movie Saint Dracula was nominated for the Oscars. To the non-Malayalis here, I will say that Sreevalsan sir's song Jalashayayil Kudirambali from the movie Laptop is one of the most haunting songs of recent Malayalam cinema. His musical albums have been on various topics, ranging from the rains to the seasons to the rasas and the temple music. He has been the recipient of awards from the Kerala Sangeeta Nadaga Academy, Madras Music Academy, and Krishna Gana Sabha. In addition to this, he has scripted and directed a short film, Jara, and played the lead role in the biopic Ashan. He played the role of Kumar Ashan. A very warm welcome to you, sir, and thank you for being here with us today.
Dr. Ran, I should start speaking now? Or?
Please, yes, please.
So, thank you one and all. Thank you, Bookworms. I'm very surprised that I'm here, but in the vast domain of art, I guess everything is acceptable and everything is plausible. So my thanks again to Minnie, Dr. Arun. Of course, I'm very happy to see Anita and Sreekumari Chechi here. And let me also thank all of you who have joined to listen to all of us. And then let me also congratulate you for this remarkable achievement of bringing out a collection of poems. I will straight away sing a song because it's better to talk something after the singing part is over. I've been requested to sing Tumani Madatta, the Ragam Hamir Kalyani. Tumani Madatta Sutrum Nilakeri தூமணி மாடத்து சுற்றும் விளக்கெரிய தூபம் கமழ் தூள் அனை மேல் கண்வள தூமணி மாடத்து மான் மகளே மான் மகளே மணி கதவம் தாழ்த்திரவாய் மாமீர் அவளே எழுப்பி உன்மகள் உமையோ அன்றி செவிடோ அனந்தலோ ஏம பெரும் பட்டாளோ மாயன் மாதவன் மாயன் மாதவன் வைகுண்டன் என்றென்று நாமம் பலவும் நவின்றேலோ ஓமணி மாடத்து சுற்றும் விளக்கெரிய தூபம் கமழ்துயில் அனை மேல் கண்வளரும் Well, I was also thinking what Anita Nair was conceptualizing with respect to music and words, imagination, and emotions. So I was thinking as to how this would relate to music. So let me state two instances where the approach in music is different. In Carnatic music, I have felt that during the process of singing, Manodharmam, or if you're in a concert, or if you're I have found that it is a very emotionless state. So should I call it blank? I'm not sure, but it is. Anyway, there isn't much of emotion involved. I mean, I don't enjoy anything, but then there is something that is there within the soul which wants me to sing. So so it is emotionless, and when you sing or when you start composing for a film or a situation, then you are given a chosen scenario. You have to sing, you have to compose for a dance, you have to compose for a pathos, you have to compose for a a scene inside a train or a bus, and so it has to be bubbly and all. So emotion has to be infused into the music. Again, it is not something that the composer feels. The composer only thinks about the aesthetics of the music, not the emotion of the music. So I was just trying to think how this distinguishes between writing poetry or words. It has always intrigued me because words are very specific, very. You have to be very clear as to how you're going to word your to phrase your sentences or syntax. Whereas one of the most abstract of forms, music, is even though it is complex, it gives you this liberty to, well, if I say that this is romance and the director agrees, then you have to agree that this is romance too. So there is a dichotomy between how you compose for a song. Well, I'm just leaving it there. So it is just rambling. It's rambling thoughts that I wanted to share with you. So I think I will leave it at that and perhaps take a few questions. Congratulations once again. I read a couple of poems that Minnie and Dr. Ram had shared with me. To me, it looked wonderful. And there is nothing more that I can comment on your skills, but wonderful effort by Bookworms. Keep doing this so that the process of creativity is dynamic and keeps on and on. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sreevalsan sir, for first thing for being here with us, and more than that, for that soulful rendition. You made the evening for us today. Now for the questions, I have a question from Arun. That is, when composing music for films, is a background in Carnatic music an impediment due to its inherent rigidity in composition?
Well, no. See, you can be a Carnatic musician and then keep away from films. So that's a choice that one makes. Because my guru was somebody like me. Neyatingara Vasudevan sir was never interested in films. If you're interested in films and if you continue to be engaged with the form of film or its music, I don't think it's an impediment. But if you're not, if you're a stickler to, you don't want to do anything else but be just the Carnatic tradition, or for instance, if you want to just do Bharatanatyam, you don't want to do contemporary dance, it's fine. I mean, it is just the state of mind. It depends on the artist.
Thank you. Then one question, that is, when you compose music for movies, what actually inspires you most? The lyrics or the visuals of the movie? Which is the real inspiration for the music?
Well, the music has to start from the brief that is given by the director as to what is the purpose of your music? What is the purpose of your song? So that itself gives us an insight into what we want to do. But at the same time, when the lyricist starts writing the lyrics and he explains to us, this is what he means, so this is what she means, it gives another layer of interpretation to the situation of the film. And I feel music is the third layer, which gives another interpretation to the existing choices of the lyricist and the director. So I think this has a third dimension. Of course, all these three things have to coincide. It has to be has to fit in, as they say. So I think it's like that. It necessarily need not inspire you. You can just complement each other, and that's how it works.
Now there is another song request from Sujil. It's asking you if you can sing Gangeya Vasadhara.
Gangeya Vasanadhara. It's the same ragam. Should I do that again? Gangeya Vasanadhara Padmanabha Mamava Navajalada Gangeya Vasanadhara Padmanabha
Now, Dr. Patmanabhan has a question for you. Is composing to pre-written lyrics and vice versa a restriction?
No, both are okay. Both are okay. So see, here it is the decision of the director, which is very important. Director wants the lyrics to be written first and then music. Then you have to abide by that. But if he wants the music to be, some directors would like to see the flow, the pace of the song. So whether the pace matches the scene that he visualizes. So in that case, the music is done first, and then the lyrics juxtaposed onto the music. So this has been a practice right from very olden days.
Restrictive?
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
I think any more questions from the listeners, please?
I think there was one from Deepthi. So Sreevalsan, if I could ask this, how do you create music for a stipulated emotion when your mind is on another emotion?
So this is why I said that as a musician, you are in a state of no emotion. I don't know how else I can put that, but well, if I think if you're talking of a mood, well, you have to keep that mood away and start working on the music. So I think you have to distinguish between your own personal inconveniences. Set aside that, and especially for a film.
I think the question was somehow related to what we discussed a few days back about how when you sing, you go into another space.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So that is when it is especially in relation to Carnatic music or elaboration in the ragam and all that. It is sometimes I feel the singer Sreevalsan is different from the one who's speaking to you right now. He becomes alienated from the familiar Sreevalsan, the man I know, is very different from the man who sings. So now the alienation, I wouldn't say alienation because that is kind of a negative, I think it has a negative connotation, I'm not sure. But I would say that detachment of the two people here, the singer Sreevalsan is so much at this point of time that I don't recognize the musician. I know I'm being a bit mystical here, but the idea was not to do that. Just trying to let you know how I relate to music and how music has transformed me. I think it's a very very complex process, and when I start talking about it, it becomes too lengthy. So I don't want to do that. But I did talk to Dr. Arun about it, and he was epiphany, the word which I've kept it in mind.
I don't think you're being mystical at all, because I think Anita Nair, Sreekumari Ramachandran, any of the surgeons here, all of them would share that feeling of the detachment when they perform. So I think you're talking about something really, really wonderful. Thank you.
Of course. Now, Anita is a wonderful singer. She sings Carnatic music as well as Kathakali music. She's learning Kathakali music and she's learning Carnatic music.
Oh, and that's one.
And one of her films, especially The Lessons in Forgetting, was one of the best films which came out, did by one of my cousins, Unni Vijayan. It won the National Award for, I don't remember what category. So Lessons in Forgetting is available, I guess, in one of those Amazon or YouTube channels. So.
Oh, that is information for us. So we have 3 singers here with us. All 3 guests are singers. Sreekumari Chechi is also a good singer.
Right.
So anyway, thank you very much for being here, Sreevalsan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minnie, and thank you, Sreevalsan, for that. So I think we'll move on to our next section, which is the reading of poems. We have 9 of us reading our poems here, and we'll be starting with Padmanabhan. Could you spotlight Padmanabhan, please? Fatima, could you spotlight Padmanabhan? If you can find him, or I'll try and do that. Ah, there he is. Okay. I'm going to spotlight him. Okay. So I'd like to introduce Padmanabhan, who will read his poem. Now, Padmanabhan, or Dr. Padmanabhan, or Paddy, as we know him, he's an ENT surgeon. He likes to call himself an avid music lover, which he is. He's an avid reader and a movie review blogger as well. He specializes in the voice and in singing. So we have another singer here. And he was inspired by these images to actually start writing as well. Over to you, Paddy, for your poem, which I will try and spotlight now. If you'll give me a moment, Paddy, I'll share my screen and show your poem as well. Okay, Paddy, I'm going to spotlight you in a minute.
Sir, I had spotlighted Paddy.
Ah, has he disappeared? Okay, Paddy, would you like to start?
You want me to share this presentation?
I have it here, Sudhir. Thanks.
Yeah.
I think if we can keep it, the others do need it. Thanks, Arun, for letting me be the first batsman. You can see the image and the poem. It is actually inspired by several. To me, the thought was actually about how the world sees everything which is more bright and generally tends to ignore the ones which are dull. I start with reading what I had written. Poetry for me essentially is something which has to be read aloud, and for me the lines should resonate when I read them at least. I start. Seeing me, what do you notice? The bright yellow or the dreary grey? It seems to me that for the voyeur's eye, color and beauty weighs more. What if I'm substantial or solid, and history lies steeped in my turrets? For the world is used to seeing me through the filter of a brighter color. I complain not, for I know my worth. I only feel sorry at your vacuousness. Youth is after all a mirage, bright today, faded tomorrow. I stand testimony to the ravages of time, history, and experiences. Today I smirk as you give me a passing glance. But remember, you will be gone tomorrow, forgotten in the veils of time. And I will stand testimony to all that I hold valuable and true. Thank you, Bookworms, for this opportunity and for this entire group for making this ebook possible. I proceed with inviting the second person to read her poem, and that is a very dear friend whom I met through this group. Benita is a teacher who currently resides in Bombay, and she will be reading this book. I have rarely met a person who is as caring and sensitive as her. Over to you, Benita, for reading your poem.
Anita, you are muted. I will ask you to be unmuted, okay?
Thank you, Paddy, for your kind words. It's been great meeting you all. This forum has certainly helped most of us, to get across this pandemic and express ourselves. So each person, it is the images that evoked certain words. So as Mrs. Anita Nair said, it is a spontaneous outburst, you could say that. Okay, so I now start. This image, which was put in by Nasir, so it was such a strong image that it evoked a message, lines, and I would like to recite that to you. As the moon quietly made her retreat, she silently bade him farewell, entreating him to rise and glow. The sun opened his eyes and gazed, casting rays of crimson orange, bright and clear. Then darkness faded as hopes arose, the earth blushing in his warm embrace. I'm continuing with this. I now invite Asha, Dr. Asha, who is a psychiatrist by profession with a passion for poetry. And I invite her to recite her poem now. Over to you, Asha.
I think Asha is not available. She's in the hospital, so she has sent a video for sharing. Share the video. Asha, are you there, Asha?
I think Asha's. I spotted
One
Asha.
second, I'm unmuting Asha.
Yeah.
Because I just got a video asking for things that.
Yes,
Yeah.
Sujal, could you share the video, please?
Yes.
No, I think she's available.
She's
Yes,
Yeah, but I think she's having some problem with the sound, so we need to play the video.
Okay, I'll just play the video. Just hold on. Just a moment. I'm just sharing my screen. Just check if you are able to listen. Hear the music.
Yes.
Music is available.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sujal, it's very quiet. It's very quiet. Could you?
One second. Just let me see. Is it audible? Is it audible now?
Sujal, unfortunately, no.
There is something wrong with the audio.
My smile has vanished.
Is it clear now?
Yes.
Mind,
Yes.
does it see
I'm
now?
starting it from the beginning. Okay now?
Yes.
Yes.
I used to love this, being photographed. But no one noticed me before. Distorted beak, no brilliant feathers, easily camouflaged with bark and twigs. Why now? I don't know. Not in a mood to strike a pose. My smile has vanished. Mind is at sea now, lost and abandoned. My voice is broken, tears all dried up. Soul is withered, world was harsh on me. All I want is to freeze this moment and stay inside your warm bubble of kindness. I don't want to leave. Your love is healing me. My scars are fading. Still, I'm confused. Don't know to emote my feelings. But it's all there in my eyes. Hope you read it from there.
Yeah, that was on behalf of Asha. And that's Asha.
Hi all. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, we can hear you, Asha.
First of all, a big thank you to Bhumi for those sweet words. And Shweta, what can I say? You are just amazing as always. Your voice is too good. You exactly conveyed the emotions I had in mind while writing those lines. And the picture taken by Bhumi, that was too good. I just wrote those lines just by seeing those beautiful eyes of that bird. And thank you, Diti, for creating such a wonderful video in such short notice. And thank you, Arun sir and admins, for giving me this platform. Now it's time for me to introduce another wonderful person from our bookworm fraternity. So what can I say? She's the backbone of our bookworm group, rather our fairy godmother of our bookworm group. She described herself as a homemaker by choice, who is in love with nature, art, and travel. But we all know she is much more than that. She is an all-rounder, a great singer, a dancer, and an amazing photographer. Her photos have a soul, something more special, which inspires many of us, including me, to scribble a few lines. I don't know which I love more, her photos or prose or poems. Her poetry itself has got a huge fan base among us. Her poems strike several chords in our brain in one moment, which makes them special. Her words are simple and beautiful, that has the power to take us along with her to her magical world. Her masterpiece work is the Krishna series of poems. She has got a special bond with Lord Krishna, which alone can be compiled and published. She's so humble and down-to-earth person. Even when I am saying these few good words about her work, I'm damn sure she'll be definitely calling her Pareidolia Bhagavati and Paramara Bhagavati in her mind, in her signature accent. She's like an elder sister to me, a great friend and a mentor to me. And it is a great honor and pleasure for me to introduce her. So without further ado, I'm inviting our own Mini Chechi, Mrs. Mini Menon, to render her poems from her Krishna series. Welcome, ma'am. Over to you.
Mini, I'm going to share my screen. You're on, Mini.
We're not able to hear you.
Mini, we can't hear you. Sorry. Mini, we can't hear you as yet.
Okay, I was on mute till now.
Okay, I'll share my screen then. Okay.
First, I want to thank Asha for saying such. I don't know what to say. I'm so overwhelmed. I feel like starting to cry. Allah Paramara Bhagavati, I'll start calling now. Anyway, thank you, Asha, so much. In fact, I didn't know I was such a person till you told me. Okay. Arun poem.
Okay.
For eons, I followed your divine music. Searching for many lives, I wandered in mute despair. Then one moonlit night, along the banks of Yamuna, I saw you with your magic flute. And I have ever since carried that music in my soul. It remains my joy, my sorrow, my peace. We stay entwined in this music for eternity. Thank you, Arun. Now, I think I should introduce our next poet, Dr. Meena. Dr. Meena Raghavan. She did her MBBS from Pune, and after marriage to Dr. Vinod Kumar, is settled in Kannur. She joined the Kerala Health Services and did palliative medicine from Malabar Cancer Center, and is presently posted as a medical officer at the health center, and also is working at the Corona Control Center at Kannur. She's a mother of two and a very talented mural artist. She is learning the veena and the classical music. And I should say, she is one of the most prolific writers among us bookworms. She writes both in English and Hindi. The minute a picture is posted, you can expect 2 poems from Meena for sure. Sometimes from 2 different perspectives. So welcome, Meena. You continue with the Krishna. Let us hear your perspective of that Krishna picture.
Thank you so much, Minnie, and thank you for saying such nice things about me. So good evening, everybody. I've been asked to recite one of my Hindi poems today. So that actually narrowed down my choices, but I've finally decided on 2 poems. They are based on the same picture as Minnie's, but they have different meanings. First one, when I saw it, was, as usual, we think of Radha and Krishna. Krishna as the lover. And so I wrote a poem. But then Arun wrote a poem which was about Draupadi and Krishna, a very different relationship. And that made me look at the picture in a different manner. I got a different viewpoint on that. So now the second poem is about Panchali speaking to Krishna. So you have 2 poems. In one, Krishna is the lover. In the second, he's a friend. And they've both been inspired by the same picture, which I think is what our book is about, Pareidolia. The same picture inspiring different emotions, different views in different people, and or like me, in the same person. So let me first go on to the first one, which is Radhika speaking to Krishna. रातों में कभी तुम्हारी बांसुरी मुझे बुलाती है, उसकी मधुर ध्वनि से मेरा अंग अंग खिल उठता है। यह बुलावा मैं कैसे टालूं, बस तुम्हारी ओर खींची आती यमुना के तट पर जहां तुम हो। बांसुरी बजा जादू फैलाते हो, दिल कहता है तुम मेरे हो, सिर्फ मेरे। तुम में समा जाओ, यह आरज़ू है मेरी। अगर यह तमन्ना पूरी हुई, यह किस्मत है मेरी। So this was the first one, Radha saying to Krishna. Now the second one, which was actually inspired not just by the photo, but also by Arun's poem, is from Panchali to Krishna. कहने को मैं अकेली नहीं, हैं 5 पति मेरे, पर दिल का दर्द जो समझे, बस एक तुम हो। जब सब ने मुंह फेर लिया, मेरी चीखों को किया अनसुना, मेरे साथ किया खुला। Sorry, I'm having a bit of a problem. Yeah. जब सब ने मुंह फेर लिया, मेरी चीखों को किया अनसुना, मेरा किया खुले आम अपमान। किसने सुनी मेरी पुकार, किसने रखा मेरा मान, जिनके लिए 100 दुख सहे, वो नजर झुकाए खड़े रहे। कभी तुम्हारी चोट बांधी, उसका रन चुकाने तुम आए। अर्धांगिनी को न मिली रक्षा, मगर हे सखे तुमने रख ली दोस्ती की लाज। Thank you. I'm sorry I stumbled a bit because I'm still having a bit of a problem post-COVID. But so thank you for bearing with me. I hope you liked them. And moving on, it's my honor to introduce someone who you've all already met, Rashmi Datta, who's one of the hosts, or should I say Major General Rashmi Datta. She completed her MBBS from Indira Gandhi Medical College in Shimla in 1983, and she was commissioned into the Army Medical Corps, AMC, in 1984. She did a post-graduation in anesthesiology and a DNB in general medicine and aviation medicine. She's also highly decorated with several awards, including the VSM. Her husband is a cardiologist in the armed forces, and her son is also an IMC doctor, Puri Fauji family, in other words, which actually has a soft spot for me because I'm also a Fauji brat. Post-retirement, she has been looking forward to indulging in her hobbies like gardening, reading, cooking, and she likes interacting with people from all walks of life and traveling. So over to you, Rashmi.
Thank you, Dr. Meena, for a lovely introduction. Yes, I do enjoy meeting people, and post-retirement, I'm really looking forward to this. And this poem today, which thank you to Dr. Arun and all of you who have given me an opportunity to present it. It's one of my first attempts, at poetry. It's okay. Do I recite it?
I'll share my screen. Yes.
I got inspired by the photograph, and most important, not the photograph, than other people who have been writing on things. So I'll just read out my poem. The world is less of these who savor your sweetness, rejoice in your innocence, clamor for a chance to be part of you, and then spread your sweetness to others. The world is less of these. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak over here. And without much ado, I'll now welcome Ambika Prasad Verma. Like all bookworms, she's a passionate reader and has a flair for writing. She herself writes Malayalam articles and short stories in Malayalam. And continuing with her flair, her job is also such. She's translating medical articles for journals. She's residing in Kozhikode and is a medical secretary by profession. Ambika, over to you.
Unfortunately, Ambika can't be with us, but we've got a recording of her poem, which I will now share. Please let me know if the audio doesn't play. There is a small problem with the audio, and I will correct it if it doesn't. Is it audible?
Dr. Arun, you should share the audio also. Where you're sharing the screen, there will be an option for sharing the audio. That is why on the launch video also that the audio was missing.
I'm really sorry. I will
launch the audio, I mean share the audio. Got it?
I'm trying to find it here.
At the same place where your video, you're sharing the screen.
Yeah,
there will be an option.
Share sound.
Now replay it. Have you played it? We are not sure on the video. Yeah, now it's audible.
സുഗന്ധമായി ഈ പാരിൽ പടരുക വിയർപ്പാറ്റും തെന്നലിൻ നിന്ന് കൂട്ടാവുക നിറയട്ടെ നിൻ സുഗന്ധം ഏതു കോണിലാകിലും നന്മ മരമായി വേരുറയ്ക്കട്ടെ നിറയട്ടെ നിൻ സുഗന്ധം ഏതു കോണിലാകിലും നന്മ മരമായി വേരുറയ്ക്കട്ടെ നനവൂറും മണ്ണിലെ നിറവാകുക തണലും തണുപ്പുമായി പടരുക ഈയുലകിൽ നനവൂറും മണ്ണിലെ നിറവാകുക തണലും തണുപ്പുമായി പടരുക ഈയുലകിൽ.
Thank you, Ambika. So Ambika was supposed to introduce the next person, but since she can't be here, I will take on the task of introducing Deepthi. Let me try. Oh, there you are, Deepthi. Would highlight you, spotlight you. Okay. Deepthi, you're unmuted. Okay. Deepthi, I'm going to introduce you. So Deepthi is a structural engineer by profession. She lives in Kochi with her husband and daughter. Books have been her constant companion ever since she can remember. Now, she's been told that she lives in books and sees the world through them. And through books and this group, she sees an epic tome of life and living in itself. That's Deepthi. Deepthi, over to you if you'd like to say something, and then I'll share my screen.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you very much for everyone, especially the Bookworms group. When I joined the group, I never thought that I would be here talking to all of you, listening to all of you. So it's a surprise for me, and thanks a lot. And thanks, I shouldn't be saying this, but in a way, I thank the pandemic for this. So
I'm going to share my screen, and then you can recite your poem. Over to you, Deepthi.
Okay, thank you. The first thing that I thought when I saw the picture is about the way the society is generally working. People do have their own deepest thoughts. That's the truth. That's their passion. But what they live for the outside world is completely different. So this is the thought that went through me when I composed this. So here I go. Come, let's dance, and dance till our last. Red as color of love and of blood. Hail me as I hail you, red and white on my face. The frill on my hair is for you. Come, fly to ecstasy and red makes a spectacle for the grey world to behold and mourn their fate. Come, let's dance. Thank you, Dr. Arun.
Thank you, Diti.
Now it's my turn to introduce Dr. Arun, and I know it's not required. Everyone here knows him. So I'll tell my part of who Dr. Arun is for the Bookworm group and for me. He is someone who sets the stage for all of us so that we can bring out our thoughts, our ideals, what we've believed consciously or unconsciously. It could be right, it could be wrong, it could be conventional, unconventional, this way, that way, anyway. But he does sets the stage for us. Another beautiful thing that he always does is he acts as a mediator, the wise, the mature mediator, who knows how to separate the emotions from the conversation and bring out the logical idea in it. Emotions, in most cases, it would be ego, prejudices, and a conditioning, the way we are brought up, the way we have seen the world. So he helps us to demarcate between emotions and the objective thinking in what we say, what we tell. And finally, what happens is a very beautiful refinement in our thought process. This way we end up learning new things, knowing more dimensions of a particular idea. So that's I'm very thankful for. That's a gift that I take from Dr. Arun. And another sweet thing is his, he shares his experiences, his photos while he travels. For a person like me, I have no idea when I'll be traveling next with my obligations, with my situation. So it's a movie in itself. The way he narrates is so alive. It's so enriching. It's so positive, optimistic. Come on, let me live happily. It's a one good, beautiful thing in my day, and I believe it's the same for everyone. So I can say a lot more, but I do stop here. So please, Dr. Arun, please, you can continue from me.
Deepthi, I wonder whether you saw me go red there. I never knew I was a counselor and a teacher to the group, but thank you so much. Thank you for your very, very kind words. So this is the image that I wrote my poem to. That image was from Mini, and these are all the people who wrote to that image. And I'll read out now what it meant to me. Ghosts of ancestors lie quietly beneath those stones, carrying memories buried, bleached white with their bones. I return with the wind, perhaps to atone. The wind rustles the leaves, aged bamboo creaks. The smell of wild jasmine wafts in the wind, embraces and caresses. Perhaps I am never alone. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of our poetry reading, and thank you all for indulging in that listening and for being with us. We'll now move into our last section, which is to talk about our charity, and I invite Deepthi to introduce Venu, who is the chairperson of the charity. Deepthi, over to you. Deepthi, you're muted, unfortunately. I'll ask for you to be unmuted. Deepthi, just give me a moment. I will.
I think it's okay now.
Okay. Yes, Deepthi, we can hear you now.
Okay, so I proceed now. So thank you very much, Dr. Arun. Venu sir, Chitra ma'am, welcome to the session. Thank you very much for being part of this session. So for all of you there, I would like to introduce Mr. Venu GVK and his wife, Mrs. Chitra Sheshadri. They are the co-founders of an institution called Sambhavam, a spectrum of possibilities. I am not going into their professional credentials because it's very easy for any one of us to find it over Google, LinkedIn, and any other professional networks. So I have talked to this wonderful person over phone, and I'm so happy knowing him. Thank you very much, Venu sir. So I would say, I want to share what I have realized talking to him. So one thing, what I know is he has a very strong professional background. He has a very comfortable economic background too. So all of us know this is an age of outsourcing. For each and everything, big, small, we go for outsourcing. So it's not a difficult task to find someone who's proficient in molding an autistic child. So that's what any conventional person would do. But despite that, Venu sir and Chitra ma'am have decided that for their child and for many other children and many other individuals out there, they are gonna pitch in their efforts, their passion, their goodness, their kindness, their network, everything into this. Because this is something hazy, this autism, the world of autism, the world of autistic people, and people with such neurological differences. We as a society, we are hazy about how to deal with them. What do they think? How do they think? So it takes courage from both of them to go into such an unknown area. From their comfortable life, they said no to their comfortable life. They went into something that's unknown, something scary as a parent, and as someone, of course, they have to make a living. So someone who is sacrificing their living to contribute to individuals, whom we are not sure of. So that takes courage. That really takes courage. And I'm out of words over that. And second point is, a person should have a very deep sense of commitment, very deep sense of social responsibility to go into this realm, so that they not only help themselves, but also include all those people, all those souls, I would say souls out there, who are defined as social misfits by the conventional society. So to include them, to tell them, to make them feel secure that we are there for you. People like us are still there in society. So that commitment, that dedication is beyond words. I have read about people like Venu sir and Chitra ma'am. I have seen documentaries on them, but this is the first time I'm meeting someone in person. And for that, I thank the Bookworm group, and I thank Dr. Arun Kishore for this. So whatever economic or whatever economic plus we get over the book that we have here, it's for this wonderful institution. And the technical details, everybody will get to know about it. But this is something, the spirit of this institution is what everyone should realize, not understand, but realize deep down within us. And another word that I have come across by talking to Venu sir is neurodiverse. That's a new word for me. I have heard about multilingual, multiracial, multicultural, multi this, multi that, but someone striving for a society where neurological, intellectual diversity should be treated as normal, appreciated, accepted in and out is really, it's really noteworthy. Hats off to you. And I don't have the credential to appreciate this, but I admire what you do, what your wife is doing. So I think I should stop here. Over to you, sir. So please tell us about your vision, your ideals, your thought process.
Thank you, Dipti. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, we can.
All right. So that was a very rousing introduction, actually. I couldn't have done it better myself, Dipti. Thank you very much. Yeah. So, and let me start by thanking all of you for the opportunity to be part of this gathering, albeit online. To hear Anita Nair speak about poetry, Sreekumari Ramachandran talk about translation, and Professor Sreevalsan Singh, and all in the same hour, is not an experience that many can wish for. So we've had that today. Thank you very much. Immediately next, congratulations to Team Pareidolia for this amazing effort. It was quite an amazing set of poems one got to hear, though I would admit I'm not the best one to talk about poetry in this elite company of poets. It's interesting to see that this poetry, and to see that it has broadly to do with nature as it is, as we understand nature, outside of us, trees and all of that stuff, or with the nature of us as human beings. Those are the two themes that I've seen in the poetry that I've heard so far, and I'm looking forward to see the book in its entirety. And it's remarkable to see that these are the two aspects of nature that we talk about, and you'll quickly understand why I'm picking up these two aspects of poetry to talk about. On a very light note, much lighter note, it is so nice to be talking to so many doctors on matters other than medical, right? You see a doctor and the first thing you talk about is the difficulty that you have with your medical history. So, but to talk about poetry to doctors is amazing. Yeah. Thanks again, everyone, especially Dr. Arun Kishore, Deepthi, and Minnie Menon for choosing Farm Hill to be the beneficiary of this charity. I've had the opportunity to talk to Deepthi, Arun Kishore, and Minnie Menon, and they've been very kind in their interactions, and very, very thankful for that. So to talk about Farm Hill is a neurodiverse community of people learning in a setting close to nature, learning about ourselves, our relationship with each other, and the larger society. So by neurodiversity, what we mean is, like Deepthi said, neurologists are different. So what is, in the sense that we believe conditions like autism and ADHD are just an expression of the diverse neurologies in human genome, rather than conditions to be regarded as disorders or diseases. So to be autistic is to have a different neurology than normal people. To be anxious is to have a different neurology than other people, and to be depressive is to have a different neurology than other people, and so on and so forth. So once we expand the definition of neurology and different neurology to conditions like ADHD and autism and not medically, and so on and so forth, we can probably do a better job of being human, of living with each other, one way or the other. We believe that we need to learn to live with people with different neurologies together, one way or the other. So that's one aspect of us as a learning community. We believe in neurodiversity. The other aspect of us as a learning community is that we believe that closeness with nature is an important part of learning. So we need to be close to nature. We need to understand where we are positioned with respect to other life forms. So that anthropocentrism, where we believe that humans are the center of the entire world, is a thing, right? So that's how we look at the world. We believe that we are at the center and that the rest of the world is there to serve us. But that may not be the best way to look at it if you're looking for sustainability and longevity and all of that stuff. So to position ourselves appropriately in nature, in the food systems that we are part of, right? So at the end of the day, it's like somebody said, we are all going to manure the earth at some point of time or the other. So why is it that we are at the center of everything that we imagine to be? So to look at food systems and how they operate and what is our place in those food systems is another aspect of us as a learning community. And we are a learning community also in the sense that we believe we need to learn as a community. We learn together. Learning is social. Learning happens in a community. And also that we need to learn to be a community. So like no man is an island. We need to learn how to be with each other, despite our differences, despite who we are not, and all of that stuff. And these are the different dimensions along which we define ourselves as a neurodiverse learning community, alternative learning community. And you can look us up on our website, formhilllearning.org. We are located near Hosur. Hosur is just outside of Bangalore, at the Bangalore, Tamil Nadu, the Karnataka Tamil Nadu border. We invite each and every one of you to come and visit us and experience the spirit of openness and learning in which we live. We have a comfortable place. You can come and stay with us and all of that stuff. I'm looking forward to hosting some of you over here. To refer to the personal story that Deepti was alluding to, we do have me and wife who cannot be here, unfortunately, today. The two of us have a child who's on the autism spectrum, who was diagnosed at 3. He's 15 now. So we've been working with autism for the last 10 years. We are both educators. So I've been teaching forever, and Chitra, my wife, has a degree in education. And so because what to do is bring about an understanding of autism, an understanding of how it works, and a certain alternativeness to all of this to build Form Hill to be the community that it is. Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone. Again, it's a privilege to be here and to be heard. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Menon. Thank you for being here today, and also Chitra, who could not be here. So I think we've come to the end of our program. I must apologize to all of you that we've sort of overrun our time, and we decided. I think we're about half an hour late. So we've come to the end of our time. What I'd like to do is, before I invite Fatima to say a few words of thanks, I'd just like to say a few things about some people who work behind the scenes, who will perhaps not put themselves forward unless I bring them into the spotlight. So you see Fatima. Now, where is Sujal? Sujal, I'm going to spotlight you. Could you please turn your... Yes. So I'm going to bring you into the spotlight. Okay. And where's Priya? Priya? Fatima, can you see Priya? Oh, there she is. Okay. Priya, I'm going to spotlight you too. Sorry about this, but these are the 3 people who work behind the scenes, who've done so much. Dvideep isn't here today, is he?
Is there, sir?
Is he?
Yeah.
Where is
he is John.
Okay. It could be.
He had come in between, but I think he's in some hospital job at the moment.
Okay. But there's Sudip as well. Now, these are the 4 people who are the admin and the force behind Bookworms. And these are 3 people who sort of designed our book and also designed and been the force behind today's program. So thank you all three. I know you won't say it for yourselves, but Fatima, I'll over to you for the vote of thanks to everyone.
Thank you so much, sir, for those kind words. Thank you so much. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good evening, friends and guests. I hope you all had as memorable an evening as I did. I think we can all agree that today's program was well planned and executed by our excellent organizers. Pareidolia, our very own poem book, is surely something which we can always be proud of. First, I would like to thank our chief guests for taking time off their busy schedules to spend this evening with us. We truly appreciate it. Next, I would like to thank some of our bookworm members, Padmanabhan, that is Paddy, Binita, Mini, Deepthi, Asha, Meena, Ampika, and Rashmi for helping us ensure the smooth conduction of this program. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Arun sir for being the driving force behind this project. He was the one to come up with the idea, organize it, and see it through. We couldn't have done it without you, sir. My next thanks goes to my co-host for so efficiently and perfectly organizing this evening. It was truly a masterpiece. Last but not least, I extend my most sincere thanks to our audience for having been such a huge support throughout this endeavor. I would like to conclude the speech with a small poem written by Arun sir, which I think aptly describes our bookworm group. Sun-ignited river dispels the pale mist of ignorance. Imagination flows quietly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fatima. Thank you. So with that, I think we've come to the end of our evening. Thank you all, friends, relatives, well-wishers, for having been here and stayed the entire course. So the bookworms, if you'd like to sort of stay back for 5 or 10 minutes, just for a catch-up, so maybe we can have a quick chat. I promise it won't be for more than 10 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody else. Thank you, Venu. So the link to the book, yes, we'll send the link to all of you because we contacted you. We'll send you the link to the book as well as to the charity. It'll be sent to you by WhatsApp or by email. We'll just wait for the other guests to leave and then we can have a quick catch up. But so I'll remove the spotlight so that we can all see each other.
Can stop recording also.
Yes.